Azure Active Directory, then this is going to be important for you to know. You may not have even noticed that there was a change here, depending on what role that you currently have. But bulk enrollment tokens actually were able to be procured by anyone. So you didn't even have to have a role assigned in Azure in order to be able to get a bulk enrollment token. If you had the ability to join a device to Azure AD, you had the ability to get a bulk enrollment token. So to increase the security around these, users now must have a specific Azure AD role assignment. And the 4 role assignments that we have listed here are the ones that you need. And so the vast majority of you probably already have, at the very least, Intune Administrator. Some of you probably also have Global Admin. But as long as you have one of these 4 roles, you have the ability to generate a bulk enrollment token. So if you are noticing that people are having issues with this, it could be because they do not have the appropriate role in order to generate the token. So this could be for site technicians, like you might have site techs if you're like in a K-12 district. You might have site technicians that might have been getting tokens before. And if they didn't have one of these roles, they were able to do it in the past, but now they'll need to be moved into an appropriate role in order for them to be able to get the token. Can this be delegated using custom roles? Corlin's asking. That's a great question. I don't know. I haven't dug too deep into what specific role or what specific item in the role itself that requires or that you would require. So you likely could put this into a custom role. I just don't know specifically what the actual attribute is that you need in order for in order to do it. And then the next thing I want to bring up is we just made an announcement for back to school 2022-2023 for Intune for Education. Most of you probably aren't using Intune for Education, but those that are, this might be important for you. We mentioned in that blog post, and actually this is where I noticed that we made this change, was the security improvements to the bulk enrollment token. That change that we made to the token, we also made a change in Intune for Education to help customers understand, the roles that they need to assign, and then check to see if your users have the appropriate roles to create the provisioning package. So if you're not using Intune for Education, I wouldn't worry so much about this. We're just making this a little bit easier for customers to understand if they've got the appropriate roles assigned. If you're using full Intune, then typically how you would just check your roles, you do it the exact same way on the Azure AD side of things. Now, in terms of autopilot, in Intune for Education, we've also introduced a new guided experience to get onboarded with autopilot. And so if you're using Intune for Education and you've been looking at doing autopilot's been in there for a little bit, but now we've added a new guided scenario that you can follow in order to get devices enrolled. We're also adding the barcode scanning and CSV upload capabilities for bulk actions. So now you can upload via CSV, and I haven't done this yet, so I don't have a barcode scanner, so I'm not 100% sure exactly how this works. But you can now upload via barcode scanning or CSV files, and then be able to do a bulk action against the devices that are in that CSV or in the barcode scanning. And the bulk actions haven't changed. These are the same bulk actions we've had in the past. We just give you a different mechanism to get the devices into the bulk actions, so you don't have to manually go and add them. We've also added Chrome settings now within your groups for Intune for Education. And so the way that this works is that we're combining Chrome settings with Microsoft Edge. So if you're in a group and you're modifying, within that group, you're modifying your browser settings, you'll notice that they don't explicitly call out in this screenshot. It might be hard to see, but in this, that's way harder to see. But in this screenshot, it's just generic in terms of browser settings, because whether it's Chrome or Edge, ultimately we don't care. And so what this is doing is it's sort of giving you a different view into what like you might be setting through settings catalog. So if you're in full Intune using settings catalog, it's effectively the same kind of thing. We're just making this easier for customers that use Intune for education to change the browser settings and have them apply whether it's Chrome or whether it's Edge. And that was it for the updates for Intune for Education. And if you want more information or if you want to go through this blog post on your own, it's in the deck. And with that, Corlin's got another question. Does the barcode scan apply to normal Intune? I've used CSV upload, but this could be palatable. Yeah, the barcode scanning does not apply to normal Intune, unfortunately. It's something that we would like to see in full Intune, but I don't think that the Intune engineering team has any plans to put it into full Intune. It's right now only in Intune for Education. And with, yeah, I know, sorry, Corlin. and with that, I'm going to turn over to Scott. And Scott, go ahead and you can go ahead and take control and share your screen, and we can get started on Windows 365.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody had a nice Labor Day weekend, and I am here to talk about Windows 365 today. I wanted to just, talk about Windows 365 because I really think this is a really neat solution. There is a place for this in education. It is definitely, I would say this is one of our solutions that does not have education pricing. So I'm just talking about this as a possible, different use cases I've seen. We've had it mostly in higher education have talked about Windows 365, but this is just more educational today, just to tell you what the solution is. And, if you have any interest in this, obviously you can always get in touch with us, but it's just a really cool piece of technology that, that I have always really enjoyed. So I wanted to share a lot about with you today. And so it's Windows 365 is really about hybrid Windows in a hybrid world. And, what's interesting is even though, let me get to this next slide here. This right here talks about how, it's I know it has a little bit of marketing in it, but the point of it is trying to make is it's talking about the point of how as hybrid work has really changed things since the COVID pandemic started. And if you think about it in terms of education, even though we are back in a lot of cases in-person classroom today, depending on if you work in a K-12 environment, or if you work in higher education, there is a hybrid work environment now. So in a lot of what I've seen in K-12, specifically in the territory that I serve, how virtual schools, every district has some type of virtual option or remote learning option that for students full time. I've noticed in a lot of IT, in a lot of cases, information technology staff that used to work on site now have the option of working remote. Some schools have gone back, some organizations have come back full office, but also in terms of higher education now, in a lot of cases, I've seen a lot of higher eds also go to a more hybrid work solution. I was working with a university the other day, and in their specific location, they don't have a lot of IT talent or information technology talent that they can draw from in their local area. So they're actually now going out beyond their geographic region and can basically hire anybody from any part of the country now. Their information technology staff is fully hybrid. They have touchdown spaces in their offices that they can come into. But right now, I mean, that is where the trend is going, where they're going to have flexible remote work options. You're probably going to have other departments as well that are going to go to some kind of hybrid or flexible work option. We here at Microsoft also have that same option. A lot of us obviously in a field role, like all of us on our call, we all work from our home offices traditionally, But even our product teams have even moved to more of a hybrid work option, and in some cases they're even fully 100% remote. So, so what that has created really for us is definitely a lot more computing solutions that we have to manage. So not only are we having to manage a client PC, so typically with remote options now, you have to worry about things like virtual private networks. You have the security on those. We also have virtualization options. So if you think about it, we offer tons of virtualization options here at Microsoft. We have Windows 365. We have Azure Virtual Desktops for one-to-one type scenarios. We even have Azure Lab Services, where you need to, if you have to provision out classroom type scenarios, for computer labs, or you may even be offering desktop as a service, where someone can access a desktop depending on what their use case is through remote desktop services. So we came up with this solution, and Windows 365, about a year ago in August of 2021, we went general availability with Windows 365. And basically the goal of this was to provide a cloud PC that, that you could have a unified security and identity management solution. So you didn't have to have a separate identity solution and separate management solution that was already integrated into your Microsoft stack. It was very easy to provision. It had content that you could still get to your storage. It had the computing horsepower. You could run all the apps and do everything that you needed to do. And it's something that was simple, and you didn't necessarily have to acquire all of these new VDI skills to be able to implement Windows 365. So that's where it basically came to. It's a hybrid Windows and a hybrid world. So now you can access a Windows PC from any device that the user may choose to use. It can be a Windows laptop. It can be a Mac OS device. It can be an iOS or Android device. It can even be a Chromebook. But regardless of whatever device they're using, they can be able to access a Windows computer that is assigned to them, that can be managed with Microsoft Endpoint Manager and provides a consistent user experience. And it can be able to access things like your on-prem environment. You can even have a Azure AD joined in one. And again, what's nice about this is instead of always having those remote workers that you need to send or contractors that you need to send a PC to, or maybe buy a laptop, you can easily provision out a cloud PC within a couple of hours, make it available to them, and they can use their device. Plus, you can add additional conditional access controls like multi-factor authentication to ensure that they're just not logging into a cloud PC using username and password. The nice thing about Windows 365 in the cloud is that can be, again, streamed across any device. It's always going to be up to date and ready. So again, you can control all the patching. You're not going to have to do any retraining because, again, most folks know how to use Windows. The nice thing about from your point of an IT staff is that it's scalable. So you can scale out as many of your cloud PCs as you need, whether it's just 5, 10, or 100. They're going to also be predictable cost. So what I mean by predictable cost, you're paying you're paying a consistent fee each month depending on the Windows 365 SKU that you purchase. So if you get a 2 CPU, 16 gig, 256 gig SKU, you'll pay that certain price depending if you buy 5 or you buy 100. And you can deploy these easily via using Azure Active Directory groups. So again, they're very easy to deploy and manage. It is also going to, again, work with all of your other services. So from an identity standpoint, as long as the user has an identity in Azure Active Directory, again, that can be a cloud identity or hybrid identity, they'll be able to use this cloud PC. You can even provision one with M365 apps already installed. That includes Teams. So again, that would save you a ton of time without having to deploy Word and Excel and PowerPoint. If you're using Microsoft Endpoint Manager, you'll be able to manage all of these cloud PCs. And if you have Configuration Manager and you're doing co-management today, co-management is fully supported on M365 as well as Microsoft Defender. So you can use the Defender policies that you have for your physical PCs. You can also use those for your cloud PCs as well. Again, it's fully integrated into Endpoint Manager. So again, you can patch all of your patching that you're doing today in Endpoint Manager would be the same. And then if you have additional security policies in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, like you're using the endpoint detection and response, or using the attack surface reduction, all of those same policies will apply in there as well. So again, you're not having to create new policies for your cloud PCs and keep those any different from your physical PCs. Now, the nice thing about this is, as I said previously, is you can access across this service across any form factor. So whether they're using a desktop at home, a laptop, tablet, or phone, or any type of operating system, they can access your Windows 365 PC. And we offer this both in Windows 10 and Windows 11. We also have different range of compute and storage configurations depending on what type of configuration you want to assign to a user. So again, we have the low-end configurations of a 2 gig of a 1 virtual CPU, 2 gigs of RAM, 64 gig of drive space, up to an 8 CPU, 32 gig, 512 gig drive. Where I've seen most customers that have been interested in the service, most have settled on a 4 virtual CPU, 16 gig, 256 gig. That seems to be the sweet spot to give users both enough compute power, local storage, and memory to run their normal daily applications. But I have seen some developers that may require, if you're using this in development scenarios, maybe if your organization, they may want the higher end 8 CPU, 32 gig. And we actually have a Azure developer offering that's based on Windows 365. Now, what kind of scenarios does Windows 365 unlock, and where have we seen this in education with our customers that have taken up Windows 365 already? First off is in data security. So I worked with earlier this year, I worked with an academic medical center where the security team wanted to have Azure AD join devices that they could run their security tools on. So this way, in case they ever had a data breach or a ransomware attack, they would already have PCs that were already provisioned out that their users could log into to be able to have those tools ready to go, that they could start working, and they could access these PCs from everywhere. And so that, again, that can help in data recovery scenarios. We've also seen this in higher education with data security. Now, in a lot of cases, and you may have, we've seen some scenarios where universities have programs where they've hired researchers for 6 to 12-month contracts, and they want to keep that data. They may have some regulatory requirements on that data. There's some PII data that they want to keep. They want to ensure stays secure. Maybe there's some requirements that they have internally that it stays on a physical server located in a building on their campus that's behind a locked door, for example. So they want to keep that data and they want to control where that data goes. So again, what this does is it gives you that ability to be able to access that data locally and keep it stored there. We've also seen it in other kind of personal devices where maybe you're giving your workforce the option where they get a budget and they have their own BYO. They're bringing their own PCs to work now. So you get a stipend. You offer that faculty or staff member a stipend. They can go out and purchase whatever device they want. They may have to enroll in an Endpoint Manager, but they may require a Windows PC to do specific types of work. We've also seen some in our temporary workforces. So we, again, in a lot of cases, some of our academic medical centers have had to scale up temporary workforces. Maybe your school district employs a call center, or maybe in certain cases, you've hired a consultant, whether it might be in your IT department or it might be in another department within your organization. We've also seen some use cases where they want universities have wanted to provide a PC for foreign students. Maybe in some scenarios where they have some restrictions where they can't use a VPN or they can't access. Maybe they need they have they're in another country and they have trouble accessing resources in, say, the United States. So what they wanted to do is provide them a PC that's here, that they can access they can still do their work and be able to keep their data here in the stateside, and be able to do all the things that they need to do. So those are those are a lot of the use cases that we have found in education. So what I wanted to do right now is to do a deep dive into the demo of Windows 365. How is it provisioned out? How to, all of the kind of the more technical details of how you would set this up and how you would get this signed out to your users. So one of the requirements so before you get started, one of the things that you'll have to do is purchase Windows 365. Now you can easily, if you want, or if you're interested, if you go under billing here and go under purchase services in your tenant, we actually have under the business section here, we actually have a Windows 365 trial. So you'll what you're going to want to do is get the Windows 365 Enterprise. If you come down here and click on the details, you'll notice that there is a free trial that you can grab. You can try for free. I believe it's this 2 CPU 4 gig, but you can try any of these in the blue here for 30 days. And again, if you're ever serious about buying this, we can get you additional licenses with additional horsepower, and you can get different SKUs and try that out. And that's actually something I would actually encourage you to do is actually try out different SKUs, because you want to test the resizing feature, going from a 2 CPU 8 gig 128 maybe to a 4 CPU 16 256. So again, you can try these out for free. So you just click on the SKU that you want, or and you can start your free trial. Now, once you actually have your your licenses or provision, then you're going to assign these to your users. So if in my example, Bruce Wayne is a staff member at Scholar Scout organization. So Bruce is going to have a license assigned. So Bruce is going to have a 2 CPU 8 gig 128 computer assigned to him to be able to use. Now, once that's assigned, now if you're the other thing, you can do this again by individual assignment, but you can also do this by group-based licensing. So if you have 50 to 16 256 configurations, you can use group-based licensing, and you can use the membership of that group to determine who gets the licensing assigned. Now, at that point, once you have your license assigned and they have an Intune license and they have an Azure Active Directory license assigned, then you can go into and you can start the provisioning process. So the first thing that I always like to do, or to make sure that customers are going to, when they look at architecting Windows 365, is do they need to actually have these cloud PCs connect to on-premise resources? And your cloud PC can be domain joined, and it can be either hybrid Azure AD joined, and it can also be Azure AD joined, meaning it can be cloud joined to your Azure AD tenant. It can also be joined to your local Active Directory domain. So in the example that I'm going to show here, we're going to put this first cloud PC in our Active Directory domain. So what that's going to require is what we call an Azure network connection. So you will need to make sure that you have an Azure subscription already. Before you go out there and set this up, you need to make sure that you have an Azure subscription, meaning that you have either like a Azure VNet, some type that can either be done through an Azure Express route, or it can either be done through a site-to-site VPN, but you do need to have a connection back from your data center back to an Azure data center. And again, that can be in any kind of region. As you can see here in this particular tenant, demo tenant, we have Azure VNets all over the world. It just depends on, but this is going to give you that connection from the Microsoft infrastructure in the Azure data center back to your local connection. Now, what's going to be unique about this specific case is that we're going to have this cloud PC join our Active Directory domain, and it's going to, we want to be able to access those locally. So what happens here in this particular case is that, let's say we're going to pick US West. So let me go and find, I think we got, or we're going to pick this central here, and where all of our PCs are going to be joined. It'll be hybrid Azure AD joined. So in this particular case, it's going to go through and set up this. Once we have set up our VNet, whether that's express route or site-to-site VPN, we can then set up our Azure network connection, which goes through and will set up, ensure, and will run and set up to ensure that all of the pieces are in place to ensure that our devices are going to connect properly back to our domain. So for example, it's going to check and make sure that our Azure AD tenant device sync, that we have a good sync between our Azure AD Connect on-prem and to the cloud, that the tenant is ready, that we have no Intune restrictions that our Intune restrictions allow for Windows enrollment. We have the appropriate Azure resource group and the permissions are correct. Also that our DNS is correct. So again, because these cloud PCs are going to be joining our Active Directory domain. And then we also have endpoint connectivity. This is also known as the Watcher service in Windows 365. So you can easily drill down into your specific Azure network connection. And if you see anything in red or with warnings in here, this gives you a pretty good idea to make sure that you have great this is a good place to check to see if you're ever having issues between your cloud PCs and the Azure service and their communication with the on-premise environment. Now, once you have that done, then you can easily start the process of provisioning that out. So all your provisioning is going to be done under an Endpoint Manager. So this is what's nice about this, that if you already have Endpoint Manager deployed, policies and your all of this stuff, this is going to be very easy to deploy. Again, there's no additional VDI skills that you have to learn. You just come in here, you assign the licenses, and then you'll notice that your provisioning under Windows 365 under this provisioning section just lights up, and you can start all of this. So what happens now is then you can create what's called a provisioning policy. So I can't create one here because in this particular tenant, I am not a admin, but I'm going to flip over to this one and create a provisioning policy. So what a provisioning policy does is you assign this to a group of users, and this basically allows them to use this to set the type of PC that they're going to receive. Is it going to be a Windows 10 or Windows 11 PC? Is it going to have Office included with all the optimizations? So in this one, I can just create, I'm going to call this one sample provision, prob policy. And I will be able, and here in this provisioning policy, I can select the join type. So in this particular case, this tenant, I'm going to do an Azure AD join. So in the case of an Azure AD join, I either have the option of using an Azure network connection, or if I'm going to use the hybrid join, I'm actually going, the only option I will have is the Azure network connection. So again, one thing that you can understand about Azure is that you can do both. You don't necessarily need to have a network connection back to your on-premise network, but if you are going to use hybrid, you do need to have that Azure network connection is required. So in this particular case, I'm going to just do the Azure AD join and host it on the Microsoft hosted network. Now, again, one of the things when it comes to selecting the region, you are going to want to pick your data center that is closest to your entity. So you may have schools all over the world if you're part of a larger organization. But then again, if you have most of your stuff, say in US East, then of your Azure resources today are in one of those US East data centers, and then again, you probably will want to pick that same data center. So in this particular case, I got the sample policy here. Next, I can select a gallery image or a custom image. So gallery images are going to be the images that we at Microsoft provide to you. So if you'll notice over here, we are only going to provide you images that are currently in support. So if you'll notice right here, we have 20H2. So we have different flavors. We have Windows 11 with just OS optimizations, but we also have Windows 11 with M365 apps already installed. So if you have certain departments, maybe they've customized the Microsoft Apps 365 installation only for Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, then you can just deploy the OS Enterprise with OS optimization. So we also offer that in Windows 10. And again, you'll see the supported releases, either the 21H2 or the 20H2 versions. Now we do have the ability to, upload a custom image. So if you have a image that you use and you've optimized it for VDI, meaning you've taken out a bunch of the apps and you have those optimizations and you have it into a VHD, you can upload that. It's typically recommended that you just use the built-in gallery images that you have. I like those personally just because it saves time and you don't have to worry about maintaining images. So I'm just in this provisioning policy going to pick Windows 11 and it with M365 apps. You can change this as any time. And you can also select different services here. So again, I can do different language packs. Now also too, this is something new here. For most education customers, because we do not include Windows Auto Patch as part of A3, you will need to make sure that you select none here. So unless you purchase E3 licensing for Auto Patch, you need to make sure you select none. So just make sure you're in compliance with your licensing. But you can use Intune to patch these PCs, and again, you can pretty much just set it on automatic, so you're not having to approve patches every month. But I think you can just use Intune and be just fine. So you select none here, click next, and then you can come in here and add your group. So for example, I have a group here called Windows 365 users already provisioned out. So I can just click on that group, select it, click next, and I have that provisioning policy. So that provisioning policy will now start to deploy to those users. Now, one of the things that you'll notice here is that when the cloud PC starts the provision out, it's all of the users in that group will get the type that PC will be provisioned, the SKU that they've been assigned. So in the case of Bruce Wayne, Bruce has been assigned a 2 CPU, 8 gig, 128 device. So if they just happen to be a member of two different groups, whatever provisioning policy that is assigned to them first, they will also be assigned as well. Now, another thing that you can also set up is different user-based policies and assign those. So for example, you can also allow them to be local admins on the device if you want or not. So again, you can just make whomever logs into that device a standard user so they can't install their own software. And then you can also, as part of your local policy, have specific point in time restore service for that cloud PC. Basically what that is that means it takes a snapshot of it takes a snapshot of that cloud PC, and it can retain up to 10 copies of that or 10 snapshots. So you can set that frequency of the restore point service as low as 4 hours, and you can go to up to 24 hours. So this is really nice, specifically if they're using these PCs for testing, and let's say they just mess them up and you want to put them back to that point in time. Now, just be aware that if you restore this PC to a specific point in time, the user will lose any data that they may have not backed up, or if they maybe So they just need to be aware of that it's going to go back to the last snapshot that they took. So there could be potential data loss in there. Now, how does this fit into from an administrative standpoint when you're looking at computers? So if we go by platforms here and we look at Windows devices, we're going to see that it's going to show up just like a regular Windows computer. So a lot of cases it will add a prefix called CPC. You can see here this one is here for Bruce Wayne. So it's going to show up here as the cloud, cloud PC enterprise. And so my menus here in Endpoint Manager are going to be reflective of the types of features and capabilities that I can use on that cloud PC. So for example, I can do sync, I can restart, I can even restore this. So for example, if I want to go back to a specific restore point, as you can see here, here's all the restore points that it's taken. I've been doing this, I do this more frequently, but I use this as an example to show how many restore points that can be saved as part of this cloud PC. Now you can also reprovision this PC. So when I reprovision this PC, let's say someone has just trashed it, maybe got infected with malware, you've disconnected it off the network, and they just say, hey, I want a fresh PC, I want to reinstall the software. You can literally just click this button and it'll destroy the PC and it will reprovision it out for that user. You can also do what's called a resize option. So let's just say in the case of Bruce Wayne, this 28128 model, it's not cutting it for him. He needs something that has a 4 CPU, 16 or 32 gigs of RAM. Maybe he needs the full 832 512. He needs the fastest thing that we can get. So you can go as an office, as a Windows 365 admin, you can come in here, you can select the type of cloud PC as long as you assign that license to them and you have that license available. So you would go in there and you would assign that new license and then just click this resize button, and that resize would allow for, it will start to add the additional CPU, memory, and disk space without interrupting their process. So you can also do all of the Defender updates. So again, if you want to do a remote assist session, if you want to kick off a descender scan, if you need to collect diagnostics. And the nice thing is too, let's say you need to place this cloud PC under review. Maybe you've had a cyber breach, or maybe there was some activity that was not necessarily deemed legal, and you've had to you've had legal come in or law enforcement come in, and you need to be able to put that under a review. You can place that PC under review, and that will keep that. And that's a new feature that's in preview. I haven't tested that out a whole lot, but it looks pretty neat. And again, just by going through the properties here, you can see it. If you go through all of the standard Endpoint Manager settings here, you can see all of the standard stuff like enrollment profiles. You can see when it last contacted the service. I can look at all the apps. Again, I can get a full app inventory. I can even look at managed applications to the device under managed apps. So, if you've deployed like Teams or Global Protect, any type of software to the device, you can see all of that. You can even see group memberships of the device as well. So all of the same things that you normally would view for a physical PC and Endpoint Manager, you still have the same cloud PC. So again, you can put these in your existing groups. Again, you just treat these like a regular computer. You may have Chrome browser updates that you're deploying, and you do that for your whole enterprise. You would include these PCs in the same group that you would maybe your physical PCs. So again, that really is just going to boil down to how you target your software distribution. But again, you're just going to manage this like a regular PC. It's just going to be in the cloud instead of on a person's desk. So what does the user experience look like? I'm going to just show this from the browser standpoint, but what's great about this is that it doesn't matter what platform that you're using. So again, you don't need a Windows computer to access this. You can access it via Mac OS. You can do it on your iPhone if you want to get on a small screen or maybe a tablet. But this can be even opened up on a Chromebook in the browser. So, but the easiest way to get through it to a browser, and that's what I'm going to demo today, is just typing in windows365.microsoft.com. At that point, the user then is presented with username and password. Now, you can secure that further down with which is something I would highly encourage, is multi-factor authentication. So this way you don't have, if a user's identity is compromised and they do get the username and password, that they just can't log on to the PC without a secondary form of authentication. So you can secure that through a conditional access policy, since they're coming in from a non-trusted computer. So definitely make sure that you're applying your zero trust policies to personal devices. So in this particular case, you'll see Bruce Wayne, and again, you may also have, if you look in this scenario here, you'll notice that I have multiple cloud PCs assigned. So you can have multiple licenses assigned to various SKUs, but just notice in this case, like I have a Windows 10 and a Windows 11 cloud PC assigned to us, but Bruce only has one in his particular case. So he's going to open up this in a browser. And if you're just even doing it through a browser session, you'll notice that you have the printer, microphone, and clipboard all there. And then you can also add a different alternative keyboard layout. So if you have users that want to have their keyboard layout in a different language, you can also do that as well. So what we'll do is we're going to just collect up on the cloud PC, and I'm going to just show that here. So again, he's just asked for his password. And we're not doing MFA in a lab environment, but in real production, you would want to do that. And we'll just log into the PC. Now, what's nice about this is that, again, because the PC is assigned on a one-to-one basis, users can leave their work up. They can leave their Word documents open. They can leave their email on. It's just basically going to be like a PC at work. Let's say you walk away for lunch, you've left your physical PC on the desk and you hit Windows L to hit the control lock screen. Same thing here. Once you log into the device, it's going to just come back the way it normally was. So while that's booting up, I wanted just to show the experience of a device that is Azure AD joined or hybrid joined. So if you'll notice here on this Windows 10 machine, I'm going to go into Worker School, and you'll notice here that this is connected to an AD domain. So this right here is connected to an AD domain. If I hit info, you can see that it's managed by Intune, and then here's all the applications and policies that are applied to the device. And you can see all the sync policies. So if you're using Microsoft Intune today, whether it's hybrid joined or Azure joined, you're going to you can still manage all this. So, these cloud PCs. So we'll go back here, and as you can see here, I have several policies already applied to this device. So one of the policies that I have specifically applied to this device is OneDrive known folder move. And so you can see that by the fact that I have some shortcuts already here of Teams, but you can, again, if you have files that are on your desktop with the OneDrive known folder move, that's a great policy. I encourage everyone to turn that on specifically. I really like it, but it allows all their data that showed up on their physical device, if they were using a Windows device, would apply here as well. And again, in this particular case, this is one that has all of the Office optimizations built into it. And then if I went down here to settings, and of course you can see here's Teams, and then here's all the teams that Bruce Wayne is a part of. So again, he's part of the School of Arts and Sciences. And then let's say I want to go into settings to look at, you can see that this device is going to be Azure joined. So if I come in here under my accounts, come under here to my work and school, you can see in this particular case that it's managed by the Scholar Scout, and then you can see all the different policies that I have applied to this device. So the different device health monitoring, all of the different applications where, like in this particular case, I had deployed the Global Protect VPN software. Although I will say, just as an example, if you do use any type of VPN software, it could interfere with the network connection. So that's not something I would necessarily recommend. Just make sure that you're doing your testing before you deploy you implement a VPN solution on the cloud PC. We do have the Azure network connections available, which will probably be a much more secure and safer solution. So again, you would manage this like any other PC in your environment. So you could take your patch management policies inside of Intune. You could keep this still locked into the 21 and this version of Windows 11. We could keep this locked into 21H2, and then using the feature update policy, we could upgrade it to a newer version of Windows 11 when this particular build went out of support. So that way you can keep the same PC OS lifecycle management policies that you have for your organization to your physical PCs. You can apply those to your cloud PCs as well. So, and then what's nice about this is, like I said, Microsoft, I can open up Microsoft Word. And let's say I just want to I start working on this document here. So again, here's the last document that I worked on, and you notice that it just saved the file. So, maybe I didn't, in this case, then close it properly. So it's temporarily stored it on my computer. So again, I have that recovered file, and now I can just come in here and save it, and I can save it up to my OneDrive, and I'm good to go. So, but anyway, what we wanted to do today was just give a quick, I could go in and spend more time going into a lot of the basics of this, but just wanted to give everybody an overview of Windows 365, show you the different options that you can join this to your current AD and use your group policy and code management with Config Manager to manage these. Or if you want to put these in Azure Active Directory, you can do that too. Now, what does pricing look like on this? For the actual, depending on the actual SKU that you purchase, these are a fixed cost. So, for example, if you, and don't quote me on the pricing is available online, but if you, let's say you purchase the 416 256 SKU, that would be the same price every month. So it will allow for your IT department to perform chargeback to different departments within your organization if you have some kind of mechanism for that in place. The only variable cost that you'll have with this type of solution is on the Azure networking charges. So typically, again, because you're going to be using, you probably may already have a site-to-site or VPN or an express route already set up between your Azure data center. Those networking charges will be lumped in with that regular networking. So depending on the type of traffic you see, you may see more, you may see less. It just, again, depends on how many users that you add to the cloud PC environment, how much those charges actually go up. So that will come off your regular Azure commit, just like any other network traffic on that. Your normal, but when it comes to your Windows 365 licensing, that will be on your regular EES agreement. So at time you can add this at any time. What's also nice about this is that you can drop this off your subscription at any time too. So let's say through your initial purchase that you purchase 50 Windows 365 licensing at various, and you find that you don't have demand, maybe you only need 25 of those 50, you can get rid of the 25 as well. And so, and then of course you can add or upgrade, you can add that at any time. So, and what's also nice about this too is you can reallocate licenses. So for example, let's say you buy 25 licenses for 25 temporary workers and their contract is over. So you now have 25 licenses. Maybe you could farm these out to different departments. So you can reassign the license or that contractor, their contract is up, that researcher I referred to earlier is done. You can take that 128 license, assign it to a new user. And what's nice about that is once you remove the license from the user has a 7-day grace period before their cloud PC is destroyed. So in that particular case, you can give the user has time to pull any data off that machine or save it to an alternate location if they're permitted to do so. So really cool technology. Would be more than happy if you're interested in this. Just contact your Microsoft account team, and you can work with one of your cloud endpoint technical specialists to ensure that you get a full licensing trial at no risk to do this in your environment. And yeah, so I'll use the last few minutes to take any questions. And let's see what's in the chat. I think there was a question, is it only billed monthly? So that you could get this on an annual commitment. So a lot of cases, depends on where it falls in your EES agreement, I believe. Let's say your annual renewals, and in this case, it was in September, and you purchased it today, you would probably have it around October 1. So you would have it for like 11 months, unless you canceled it. So you would pay for the 1 month, the next 11 months of your renewal. Any other questions? All right. Well, Richard, I'll turn it back. Okay. Looks like we got a new one. Ryan's put in some documentation in the window on pricing and plans, and then also some FAQs in here as well. So again, if you're interested doing a trial, there's no cost to do that. We give up to the 4. I think the highest one we go is a 416,256. So it allows you to really try that out. And like I said, in a lot of cases where we're seeing a lot of interest in this is in things like, especially in higher education, disaster recovery, and providing PCs to temporary workers. Specifically, because a lot of organizations have tightened up their security, specifically around hybrid work. They want to have something that they can have a little bit more control over, and not necessarily getting into the game of shipping PCs in the mail and then seeing if that device ever comes back. So Richard, I'll turn it back over to you. Thanks everybody for your time, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Scott. Yeah, I think with Windows 365, early on, one of the other use cases was around the supply chain, where we had a lot of customers that couldn't get hardware. And so they were spinning up Windows 365 VMs basically as soon as the service opened up, so they could get access to a Windows PC because they couldn't physically buy them. So lots of different use cases, like Scott had mentioned throughout his presentation, that we do see K-12 as well as higher ed and academic medical centers really take advantage. So thanks a lot, Scott. And thanks a lot, everyone else, for joining this week. We do look forward to seeing you guys next time. And next time we will have one of our product managers from the update compliance team come and talk, like we had mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago during the update compliance session. Because they are going through a version 2 of update compliance, I wanted to have one of their PMs come on and talk to us. So that'll be happening next week. So look forward to that. And with that, everyone have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Great job, Scott.